Quando falamos de ambientes de processamento de mídia, sejam eles novos projetos ou projetos já existentes de longa duração, o desafio de orquestrar e automatizar processos é sempre complexo, principalmente quando nos deparamos com ambientes híbridos. Olá, bem-vindos a mais um Set Academy. Para falar um pouco sobre isso, estamos aqui com Alex Emmermann, da Telestream. Hello, Alex. Welcome to the Set Academy.
Hello. Thank you.
Alex, for the new projects or for those players who have big infrastructures on premises, do you think the hybrid system is the way to go?
Sometimes. It just depends on who it is. The fact that they have a big infrastructure already on premise, if they want to start moving to cloud, the hybrid is probably the way to get started. It's very difficult for anybody to sort of shift very quickly everything onto cloud. It certainly offers a way to gradually move workflows into the cloud without having to try and figure out how to move everything at once, which is basically impossible.
So if you're starting a new company today,
that's different.
We should advise you to go to the cloud.
If you're starting a new company today, certainly the hybrid would not be the optimal choice. It brings up some complexities that you don't have when you're either running on-prem or running in the cloud. And frankly, I do advocate for new companies that don't have a big infrastructure to start in the cloud, because you're not using a bunch of your capital that you need to run your business on real estate, infrastructure, and things like that. And if you decide you're not going to grow as quickly as you thought, you can sort of dial down your spend, and you don't have to take as big of a risk with your capital.
And in our case, we have a big infrastructure on premises, and we are now on the way to go to the cloud. And what are the challenges when we need to orchestrate this environment?
There's a few. The first one that always comes up is the networking side of it. So you've got resources on-prem and you've got resources in the cloud, and you have to be able to get those two to communicate with each other. And for some companies, if they're depending on how they secure their networks, that can be a challenge. That's usually the first one that pops up. And then once you get past that one and everybody gets comfortable with it, the next step is really to adapt the workflows that they've designed on-prem to be able to work also in the cloud. And that's where companies like AD Digital, who we work with down in Brazil a fair amount, are really helpful. You've got people that know how workflows work and know how the cloud works and can make adaptations to them, because not everything works exactly the same way in the cloud as it does on-prem. Like the storage locations sometimes need to be changed. Certain actions don't translate well to the cloud. Another challenge that you need to think about is what I'll call egress. It is making sure that you push the data to the right place when it's naturally needs to be there. If you're just sending data to the cloud and then pulling high-res versions back from the cloud, you're going to incur a lot of extra costs that don't make sense. And then the other one is kind of the when deciding. Now you have the ability to run hybrid. You've got to start making those decisions of when do you run on-prem fully, or when do you run in the cloud fully for one workflow, I mean, or when do you have a workflow start on-prem and finish in the cloud, or those types of things. And those are all possible. It's just about where is the data being received from and where is the data being delivered to, and then how that helps you make a determination of where to execute the jobs.
Yeah, as I like to say, it's all about where are the processes. The process.
If somebody's going to deliver media to me in the cloud and I need to deliver it to someone else in a cloud storage location, I would make that whole workflow operate in the cloud. Why bring that on-prem? Whereas if I have somebody delivering to me on-prem and I need to deliver it on-prem, the only reason I would go to cloud is if I don't have enough resources to get it done, and there's a big business reason that says you need to get this all done within a week, for example. Then that's when it's great to be able to flex to use resources outside. And there are definitely business drivers where that can be very attractive.
And how can Telestream help with the orchestration of hybrid systems?
So we've been running on-prem media processing systems for years. A lot of your, customers or partners probably use our stuff. And we saw several years back that folks were starting to look at cloud. Media industry has been very, not quick to move because of the sort of content security concerns, but most of that's passed now. So a few years back, we came out with something called Vantage Cloud Port. Everybody's pretty familiar with our Vantage system. And what Vantage Cloud Port allows people to do is migrate to the cloud. And it supports either complete operation in the cloud, and then Vantage obviously supports operation on-prem. And the two together can work together to do different hybrid scenarios.
So, we use the Vantage in our company. And if you have an overload in some works, we could easily bring to the cloud with Vantage Cloud Port. Yeah,
there are, in our workflow designer, there's ways to tell, to basically put checks in there that say, if the system is loaded to this capacity, any new jobs coming down the workflow will be redirected down a different path. And that different path says, oh, this is a cloud resource that needs to be used. It uploads the data to your cloud account, executes the job, and then brings it back down to your on-prem, or can leave it in storage that's up in the cloud. So it's a really nice way you can run specific actions in the cloud. Or if you want to run an entire workflow in the cloud, you can take, this is a really nice thing about transferring from, with Vantage, is you can take your Vantage workflows that have been running in the cloud for a long time, make modifications to them, like where the storage locations are, upload that entire workflow to the cloud, and run the whole workflow in the cloud. So it's very flexible in allowing you to move your work to the cloud. You can move it on a hybrid basis. You can be hybrid in that some workflows work in the cloud, some workflows work in the on-prem, or like I said, some specific actions.
All right. And then one last question to finish. Why cloud?
So that's a good one that I get asked all the time. I hinted at it earlier with kind of the capital constraints and resources. So there's generally a couple of reasons why people suddenly say we need to start looking at cloud. The first one is they've got a large capital expenditure coming up. So let's say you have a transcode farm or a media processing farm, and you've got, 20 or 30 transcoders, and they are all coming up to end of life, or a large percentage of them are, and you're looking at this big capital expense coming your way. That's a time when you might say, okay, it's time to start looking at cloud, because now we can turn this into an OpEx situation. And the other thing that drives that is the ability to flex up and down. You may not need 20 transcoders on Tuesday, but you need them on Thursday, and really need them. So now you have to buy equipment that doesn't get used. Whereas in the cloud, if you need 1,000 transcoders on Thursday, you can have them. And you need 0 on Tuesday, you're not paying for them. So it can be especially when you have these peaks and valleys, it can be a very efficient way to use resources. The other thing that happens is real estate costs change. Some of these media companies bought their data centers in the 70s or 80s. And 30 or 40 years later, that real estate is now premium real estate, and you're sitting on a huge resource that you're like, man, if we sold this, we could generate a ton of revenue for the company that we can use to invest in other places, versus just having this static thing. And so what a lot of companies are doing is, when they make that decision that, yeah, let's convert this into cash, then they say, well, are we going to move all this stuff somewhere, or is this the time when we should just push it into the cloud and start leveraging the economies of scale in the cloud? So that's another time where it happens. And there's one last one that's really subtle, which is the ability to make decisions quickly and not have a decision be permanent. So let's say you're running out of space in your data center and you need a little bit more. You can't just add a little more space to your data center. You have to either rent another space or build another data center. And that's when things get really painful. After you've already sort of squished everything down and you're like, I've got everything in there I can get, I now need a new space. that's when people start looking at cloud saying it would be nice if I could just add 2 or add 4 rack space units. And that's what the cloud allows you to do is just flex up incrementally a little bit at a time. And if you decide that, oh, that business idea didn't work, you just make it disappear. You're not stuck with a 5-year lease on a data center space. So lots of business drivers for it.
Yeah, especially when talk about speed, because the cloud, like I said, you need for Thursday. Okay, you have for Thursday.
That's an interesting success story we had recently. One of our content provider customers licensed their entire library to one of their customers, and they wanted to deliver it all pretty quickly. They went to their internal team and said, hey, can we deliver this? And the internal team said, yeah, it'll take about 2 months to reprocess everything. They came to us and said, that's too long. Can you guys do this faster? And we said, yes, you've already got Vantage workflows for this. Just upload them to Vantage Cloud, and we can process your entire library very quickly because we can use a lot of resources for the problem. We did their entire library in a week, and they were able to deliver it to their customer and get that revenue coming in a week instead of in 2 or 3 months. So that means their fiscal year, their quarter looks very good because they're able to bring the cash in faster.
Well, Alex, thank you for your time. Thank you for this interview here in Set Academy.
Ciao. Muito obrigado.
Até mais.